a nation. UPP. More schools for education. UPP. Agricultural expansion. UPP. That's the UPP intention. Get vote for UPP and make the right choice. Vote for UPP. Showing stability. Vote for UPP. If you love your country, vote. This is the urgency of now. The United Progressive Party. Time for out the fire, the ALP. How we are uplift the youth them and not create more jobs in the country. Yeah. The right team, the right mindset, and character to get the job done. Yeah. Senior citizens, no worry, no fret. Brighter days are gonna come your way, don't forget. United all my people, we gon' stand up. Progressive thinking people time to move up. For integrity, accountability, transparency. Vote for the right choice. Raise your finger for the right choice. Let me vote. Raise your finger for the right choice. Vote, let me vote. Raise your finger, make the right choice. Right choice. UPP are the right choice for you and me. Hey, if you love Antigua, if you love Barbuda, UPP are the right choice for we. To fix the economy, more stability. UPP are the right choice for we. Social development, youth empowerment. UPP are the right choice for we. So who you gonna vote for then? So who you gonna vote for? UPP are the right choice for we. The United Progressive Party. Them are the one, them are the right choice for economic recovery and stability. Them know how to run the country. Too long now, people can't see no upliftment. A time blue team run parliament for social enhancement and development. More infrastructure for technology. Blue team, UPP are the right choice for we. Aye, we have a leader with a Black Panther, a dynamic. Fresh agenda, no more dictatorship, just good leadership. We lead the country in a prosperity and bring development to every community. Blue team, you know them are the right choice for with them build a new airport and hospital for with free meals for the students of the country. Let we vote, UPP are the right choice for we. Let we vote, UPP are the right choice for we. Let we vote, vote, let we vote now. For UPP.
To another edition of the Captain's Corner. I am Shawn Nicholas, and with me in the house is the Captain, Harold Lovell. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening to all the viewers of the Captain's Corner. This is a great Thursday. Okay. We're going to have a wonderful program here tonight.
We hope, we hope. There are a number of issues that we want to address. We had a number of issues that pointed out you want to address. Of course, we have to review the pickets, the pensioners' picket that took place this week. You want to touch a little bit on the cadets, the deck and engineer cadets that are studying or were studying in Jamaica. I know you want to talk a little bit about the Poultry Association and the TIF with the Department of the Environment. We'll also be looking at the whole issue of cost of living, the minimum wage, water, which remains on the agenda. These are just some of the topics that we hope that we could get through in this evening's program. But let's talk first of all about the picket, the pensioners' picket this past week.
Oh, yes.
You know, take us back there.
Yes. I just want to congratulate all the pensioners who came out on Tuesday, right after the public holiday, and who stood up with the United Progressive Party as we stood in solidarity with the pensioners of Antigua and Barbuda. We emphasize the pensioners, but what we're really talking about is the fact that the Social Security scheme has really hit rock bottom, and we need to fix it. I mean, at the end of the day, the time has come for us to stop making excuses and for the government to fix it. They need to figure it out, and they need to fix it. We keep hearing all these excuses. Oh, the government is paying more money in than any other government. Look, that's not the issue, because even when you think of the amount that they're paying in, they're paying in more because there is more to be paid out. You have to remember that in 2013, we'd increased the insurable income from 4,500 to 6,500. That was in 2013. So leading up to 2013, all payments would have been made on the basis of insurable income at 4,500. Now that the insurable income ceiling has gone up to 6,500, it means that more money is being paid for persons who earn in excess of that amount. But also, in addition to the insurable income, we also increased the rate, the contribution rate. And the contribution rate, whilst under us, it was up to 10% for the public sector. I think it was 11% for the private sector, but let's focus on the public sector. The public sector moved from 10% at the the contribution rate, to what it is now, 13.5%. So there's been a 35% increase in the contribution rate. So just that alone would account for the increased amount. It's not as though they're working extra hard to put in extra money. It's just that based on the insurable income and the contribution rate, they're paying more because they increased the contribution rate by 35%. So that would give them 35% more on the contribution rate. And on the insurable income, it was up to 4,500 up to 2013. And then from 2013, it moved to, from 2013, it moved from 10% to 13.5%.
So definitely, as you say.
Yes, so that accounts for the increase in the amount that they would have to pay. And plus, more persons are working in the public sector. They've increased the number of persons who are working in the public sector. So these little funny twists and spins that they try to put on the issue, we need to have a mature discussion on Social Security. That's really the bottom line. Everybody needs to accept what the facts are, not people's opinions, what the facts are. And the facts are that for 28 years, the Labour Party exploited and undermined the Social Security system. I noticed something in the cabinet note which says that something about we put in a bond and tried to give the impression that the bond was a payout in cash. I mean, how dumb can you get? A bond is a bond. We put in place a structure for repayment. That's what we did. It was a structure for repayment. And what this government needs to do, recognizing the difficulties into which the scheme has fallen, is to put cash in. What they did, they put in the U.S. Air Force facility. That's not cash. That's not even generating any serious income. You have the prisoner from England who is staying there, and a couple of other people, I think, during the COVID period when people were being quarantined, a lot of persons might have stayed there. But it is not an income-earning asset, so it is not producing any benefit for Social Security. So these are the things that need to be addressed, and the scheme needs to be fixed. That's what needs to be done, and I've given the commitment that a UPP administration will address this Social Security problem, will treat it as a priority, and wherever the funds have to be sourced, we will make sure that the benefits that are due to our pensioners and the benefits that are due to mothers who have not been able to get their maternity benefit, persons who've been sick, who've not been able to get their sickness benefit, all of this is totally unacceptable. And when you hear that a mother who would have been expecting to receive 60% of her pay, having given birth over a 3-month period, and 6 months would pass and she can't get $1. And that's when you need to be buying Pampers, you need to be buying wipes, you need to be buying things for the baby. These This is so important that I cannot understand how a government could sit by and just in idle chatter, I have to say, always trying to point fingers in some sort of blame game. The facts are the facts. And let us just deal with the facts and let's have a mature discussion about Social Security. In the meantime, the United Progressive Party, we stand in firm solidarity with all those who are affected, and don't worry with all that you hear them saying. I saw in the cabinet note that during the UPP time, pensioners had to be sleeping and that type of thing. Well, even if you break down what they're saying, if it is that a pensioner is sleeping to be at the front of the queue, well, at least there's a queue to get money. Now, when you have to be waiting a month and a half to get your money, what are you going to do? This is not sleeping overnight now. This is where you're going to have to start to pay house rent. So what they're saying makes no sense. What I would say is that during our worst time of the crisis, when we were badly impacted, during our worst time, it went up to, I think, 9 or 10 days late. I think I checked it out, and it was 9 or 10 days late, 10 days. Now we're talking about 30 days late, 45 days late. And when you listen to the head of the Social Security the other day, they're only now beginning to make some payments from way back. He spoke about the short-term benefits, 6 months backing up. So what we're saying is this is unacceptable. The government needs to treat it as a priority, and a UPP administration will make certain that this matter is addressed as a matter of sincere urgency.
So the call made by the pensioners, you say, was a just cause?
It is a just cause, and we have to remember, a lot of the pensioners, you listen to them talk as we were moving around. Some of them don't even have a loaf of bread. Some of them, they don't have basic toilet facilities, toilet paper, toothpaste, and so on. They depend on the little pension to do that. Some of them have to take their liquid pressure tablet or some other tablet that they may have to pay for. They don't have the money to do that. There's so many basic things that when this is your only source of income, there's no justification why the government would think it is acceptable to keep people waiting for over a month and over that for what they're entitled to.
Okay. Another issue, or an issue that has been of concern to you, I know, is the one where we had some young men and women who went off to Jamaica, the Caribbean Maritime University, to do some training, deck and engineer cadets. And they have been having a horrid time in terms of their stay in Jamaica and their support from the Antigua and Barbuda Port Authority, which is supposed to be the sponsor. Let us talk to that. I know you have, that is close to your heart.
Yes. Now, this is a matter that I feel very strongly about. I'm very passionate about this. I look at a group of 17 young Antiguans who were taken up and they were paraded, and everybody was very happy for them. They had been selected to pursue studies in Jamaica at the Caribbean Maritime University, and they would have achieved qualifications. First of all, a BSc. Some of them opted for the BSc in marine transportation, which would have qualified them to become harbor pilots. And then the others, they opted for the BSc in marine engineering, which would have allowed them to become engineers down at the port. And so it was a bright and happy day for everyone. Parents were involved. Everybody felt very happy for these young Antiguan boys and girls going off to university. It's a proud day for everybody. But then it goes downhill from there. And, they were given these letters, told that they were going to be studying in Jamaica, and when they came back, what would be expected of them. The Antigua Port Authority and the government of Antigua and Barbuda were very happy and said all the nice things. We're You have been selected by the Antigua Port Authority to attend the Caribbean Maritime Institute as a student in the pilot program or in the engineers program. Goes on to say that the government of Antigua and Barbuda and the Port Authority will be responsible for all your expenses towards the students' tuition and other auxiliary costs for the duration of the course of study. So it's all good. Everybody is so happy and so on, you know. On the 15th of August, 2016, they were made to sign a bond agreement, and it was said that they had been selected to attend this university, the Caribbean Maritime Institute, in the discipline for a period of 4 years, and that the Port Authority and the government would be responsible for funding their entire course. And this is the thing. They say when the studies are finished, they will come back to effect duties in the Marine Department as a marine pilot, in this case, a marine pilot. Others were for marine engineer.
Yes.
Now, everybody was very happy for these students as they left, and they found that the first year, they said, wasn't bad. You know, the second year started to create some problems. When money was to have been paid, money wasn't paid. It became worse in 2018. 2018, they found now that they were being taken out of classes. They couldn't write exams. They were being prevented from doing some of the short courses. It begins to get really terrible for these students.
Being paid by
the government and the Port Authority to the Caribbean Maritime Institute. So you have the Antiguan students now being taken out of classes, being prevented from doing their exams and things like that. So it starts to get really bad. Then comes COVID, and it gets even worse. They're complaining. The classes are now online, and as they coming home, some of them were stuck in Jamaica. Those who were able to come home, they completed their final semester eventually, then no work. So they're here, back home. Many of them, they have been unable to complete their studies. A few of them were able to at least complete the final semester in terms of the straightforward academic course, but they weren't able to do short courses because some of them, the short courses that they were able to do to make them qualified in their field, they weren't getting the certificates for the ones they had already done and passed. And they were prevented from doing any further short courses to help them with their qualification. The sea time that they're supposed to do, like the training on the sea, that was supposed to be part of the course. They said, no, you're not going to do it in the course. You'll do it when you come home. When they came home, not for their comfort. Nothing is happening for them. The parents had to be going to see the people at the port. The government gave them nothing but promises and bluffs. They couldn't get their other certificates that they had qualified to attain. They had passed the exams. And then came the crunch, their degrees. When they were ready to get their degrees, because they had already completed their studies, this is separate to the short courses for which they would get certificates, different short courses in all the different areas of their study. Their degree time came, and the situation was so bad for them. Not only were they prevented, as I indicated, from attending classes and so on, but they couldn't receive their degrees. They were barred from receiving their degrees. They were barred from even doing the resits. Some of them who may have had like one extra subject to do in order to complete the studies, they were barred from doing their resits.
For the non-payment of fees.
Because of non-payment. All of this is because of non-payment. Then they were prevented from doing short courses, as I said. They were prevented from receiving certificates. And what I believe must have been most painful for those who had completed the degree program and didn't have to do any resits, everything was fine, when the day for the graduation came, they were locked out of the graduation ceremony. Now, you know what graduations mean, especially not to the students, but to the parents. Because when you're a parent and you have a young, bright child who has qualified, you know, are doing all these subjects, you know, they've mathematics, and they would have done a lot of not algebra, but, you know, a lot of the courses that would have to be related to mathematical formulae so that they can work all the things out as marine engineers and pilots in the port and so on. The day of graduation came. And imagine all those parents who would have been looking forward to this day of graduation. I know parents who would throw a box just to attend graduation, whether it be in New York, wherever, where their students, where their children are suffering. And that's such a proud day for parents. And imagine your son who would have, or daughter, who would have undergone these studies, all these trials and tribulations, but they would have successfully climbed the greasy pole, successfully crossed all of these hurdles. And this is their big day. This is your big day as a parent, to sit in the crowd and to say, that's my son, that's my daughter, as they cross the stage to get their degree and this and Antiguan and Barbudan students locked out of the graduation ceremony, denied the opportunity to graduate because you have a government and a port authority who don't care enough to make sure that the fees are paid to the Caribbean Maritime Institute so that our sons and daughters could have that wonderful moment. And I just want to say something here, why this is so critical. Because when we're looking about the development of our human capital, when we're looking about the development of our youth, and you have a group of bright young people whose only ambition is to serve their country, to serve in the capacity as harbor pilots, as marine engineers, to play their small part in the development of this nation, where their hopes would have been built up, to be so cruelly dashed, where up to now they don't know where they stand. A few months ago, sometime in March, they were offered one-year contracts to work as cadets. As cadets, when they were promised that after 4 years, they were coming back to work as engineers and as pilots. And they are now working as cadets on a one-year contract. And it's not the first time, you know, in September of last year, 7 of them were called in. But the only reason why they were called in, and they were called in to work as longshoremen and tally clerks, because the mandate had been implemented down at the port, and there was a staff shortage. So they didn't think about them all the time. But here there was a shortage.
The vaccine mandate?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
There was a shortage because of the vaccine mandate. And that is the only time 7 of them were called in. And you know what happened? On the last day of December, by WhatsApp, they were terminated with immediate effect. So this approach where you have no use for them, you send them away to study, you bring them back, there's no work for them, there's a staff shortage, you call them in, they work to fill in the gap for the people who have not taken the vaccine. Then on the last day of the year, you're terminated by WhatsApp with immediate effect, nothing further. In March, they put you on a one-year contract after all your years of study. No, it's estimated that the whole program would last you about 7.5 years. 4 years for the academic part, and there'll be another 3.5 years where you'd be doing your undersea training and so on, and you would be expected to qualify for the certificate of competence. They can't do any of that. All of that has been denied. And so we're saying, look, the time has come for them to work it out, fix it, and get it right for these young people. It is not good enough to have our young people suffering like this. And I want to say, these are not the sons and daughters of the well-to-do and the influential in our society. These are the sons and daughters of hard-working, law-abiding Antiguans and Barbudans. Parents who go to church, pay their taxes, and obey the law. They have paid their dues, and their children do not deserve to be treated in this callous way. And we're calling on the government of Antigua and Barbuda and the Port Authority to do right by these young people. Get it right. Allow them to get their degrees. Allow them to get their certificates. Allow them to fulfill their potential. Allow them to realize their dreams and their ambitions, and stop treating them in this disrespectful way, where because they are not the sons and daughters of those who are influential and powerful in this society, they're being treated in this callous manner. It must stop. And we're calling on this administration to do something about it and to get it right. And the time for delay has passed. Get it right now.
And on that note, and with that plea, we will take our first break for this evening. Remember, call a friend, share the live, and of course, we'll be entertaining your calls, your comments later on in the program. So we'll be right back after this break.
It's time to join the family at the People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. We offer savings accounts, deposits, fixed deposits, loans, among other related services. You can even become a shareholder by purchasing a minimum of 50 shares at $5 per share. Membership is super easy and convenient. Just visit our newly opened credit union building on Upper Newgate Street, Monday to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. with proof of ID and address, along with $15 to cover registration and passbook. And you'll be set and on your way. For further information, call 462-8888 or 727-2285. People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. Today, tomorrow, together.
And we say welcome back to Captain's Corner. I want us to turn our attention now to an issue that came up in the news this week. Over the weekend, there was a voice note that was going viral. A member, or I think you said he was the president of the Antigua and Barbuda Poultry Association, or the Layers Association. And we've had a response from the Department of Environment, the whole issue of the acquisition of an egg box making machinery that they would have helped to source and now is being held on by the Department of the Environment. There seemed to be some little tiff between the organizations and the Department of Environment. I'd just like to have your take on it.
Yeah, well, for me, I say between the government and the members of the Poultry Farmers Association. Now, the reason why I say the government, because this is really a matter where there ought to be a government policy, and that policy ought to be a people-focused and people-based policy. This is a great opportunity. You know, I've had a chance to listen to some of the interviews that have taken place in relation to this matter. You know, I'm saying governance is such an important aspect of government that here is an opportunity for empowerment, an opportunity for us to build new institutions that bring our people into management and into strong and better business practices. Why do I say that? I heard the different points that have been put on the table. And one of the points that was put on the table was that there was one poultry association at one time, and then there were two. And because there were two, there's a problem. And it's a problem that cannot be resolved, so the equipment will have to be given to someone else. Meanwhile, the equipment lands in Antigua. The equipment is sitting down for the past 3 months since March, not earning any money. The opportunity cost for having this machine producing the product that it's supposed to produce. It's a great idea from all that I've heard. But here, this should be a case where the government would see, first of all, the major stakeholders in this matter would be the poultry producers. They're the major stakeholders. This is an opportunity for the government, instead of seeing it as a divided group which has two different bodies, use its influence as government to bring them together, to help them work together. I see this as such a great opportunity for us to build like a cooperative, for the government to facilitate the formation of a poultry farmers cooperative, which has the blessings of the government, properly run, properly structured, registered, proper financial arrangements put in place, have an elected board, and empower the poultry farmers. Allow them with transparency, with accountability, and with support to make a success of this venture. This is such a great opportunity, not for the government to have the equipment sitting down there doing nothing. And it just shows the lack of vision. The fact that there is no plan for this type of equipment, whereby the equipment can be used in a productive way, not with the heavy hand of the state or not with the state machinery hand-picking who should be the persons to run this, but rather to do the thing that is obviously the right thing to do, to let the stakeholders. I mean, when you listen to that tape with the young man who explained that they had such an interest in this thing, a passion to make it work, that they were able to source the specifications of the equipment, they were able to show the design that was the right type of design. And as he said in the subsequent interview that I heard, the people who are poultry farmers, and I know that for a fact, I know poultry farmers who are former bankers, I know poultry farmers who are former permanent secretaries in the government service, poultry farmers who were doing other enterprises, involved in other forms of business. Oh man, they have so much experience, they have talent, and instead of recognizing that talent, we are literally throwing cold water on that talent. And I'm saying that this again shows the difference between what a united Progressive Party administration would do. We would seize this opportunity. We would call in the poultry farmers, all those who have a vested interest in this type of business. And I would say, let us work together. The government will help you to put together a business structure, whether it's a company or a cooperative. Allow the poultry farmers to make a decision on the type of business structure and model that they would like to have, and the government would help them. Allow them and facilitate the process whereby they would form themselves into this company and make it work. Put the equipment in the hands of this company. If the government wants a supervisory role, that's fine. If the government wants to have a representative on the board, that's fine. But for heaven's sake, allow our people to demonstrate their capacity. Allow them to demonstrate their ingenuity and their managerial competence. Give our people a chance. Give our people an opportunity. Why do we always need to have the heavy hand of government that is putting its knee on the necks of our people? Why can't we have a government that facilitates progressive interventions? That is what a UPP administration would do. And I look forward to the opportunity and the day when we as a UPP administration will be able to do things like this, like we did with the Construct Antigua and Barbuda initiative. That was a program that was designed as a result of cooperation, collaboration, and consultation. When I look at so many other programs that we brought into being that empowered our people, like the Cricket World Cup Incentives Act, call it the Small Business Incentives Act, had over 40 small properties owned by Antiguans and Barbudans set down as a result of a distinct policy, putting a department together to facilitate it, to fast track it. And we had over 40 properties built in Antigua and Barbuda in less than 24 months. That's what happened. And it happened because there was a deliberate policy. And even though you may accuse me of blowing my own trumpet, I was the minister who piloted that. I was the minister who piloted the Construct Antigua and Barbuda initiative. And up to now, the government is still benefiting from that and recently extended that. You say I'm blowing my trumpet?
That's all right. That's okay. But I want you to know that the questions are coming in fast and furious, so I hope we have enough time a little later on to address them. But I want us to look at some other issues. For one, the whole issue of cost of living, still very much topical, because people are still asking, what sort of reprieve can we get as a nation in terms of tackling or mitigating all the effects of the cost of living increase? A UPP administration, what is the policy as it relates to cost of living?
Right. Well, obviously, when you're in opposition, you must be able to show what can be done. And we've done that. The government has tried to throw cold water on some of the suggestions that we've put forward. But we're heartened by the fact that when you look around the Caribbean, almost every idea that we've put on the table, in some form or another, there's a government that's implementing it. I'm not saying they're implementing it because they're listening to us. That's not what I'm saying by any means. I'm saying these are common sense things to do. Having served as Minister of Finance, I have an idea of what can be done and what can't be done. Now, what I know can be done is that we can reduce import duties on many of the food items, especially the essential food items and food-related items. That's something that I know can be done because the cost of living to a large extent reflects imported high prices. A lot of the high prices are coming in from overseas. You listen to the news, you know that there is an inflation issue in the United States, in England, and many other places. So the shipping costs have also gone up. So we're having increased transportation costs. We're having increased product prices. So goods land on the shores at the port of Antigua and Barbuda at a higher price today than they were, say, a year or two ago. So that's a fact. You call that inflation. Now, because the prices are coming in inflated, higher, it means that the government is collecting more tax. Because the tax that you put on $100, if a good is $100 landed, and you put a tax on that, if that good or that product goes up to $200, you're going to get twice as much tax. Logic. That's how it works. So if the government is collecting more tax as a result of higher costs at the port with goods coming in, the government can afford to cut. I didn't say all, because you have three border taxes. You have ABST, you have the RRC, and you have the customs duty. Those are the three. If you leave ABST, if you leave RRC, or you don't touch those immediately, but the customs duty, you can reduce the customs duty on essential items. You've heard me speak of things like cooking oil. We pay a 40% tariff on cooking oil at the port, 40% duty. Now, on that, if you were to cut that even in half, the government could still walk away with the same amount of money that they were collecting a year ago. And there is no excuse for failing to consider measures which would reduce the cost of living on essential items. A 5-gallon bottle of cooking oil that was costing $75 just over a year ago, it's now $175 in some places and $212 in others. Now, what does that say? That says that if you were to cut the duty and you monitor the price increases to make sure that the benefits are passed on to the consumer, then cooking oil is such an essential item for everything you do. Fried dumplings, fried chicken, fried fish, everything that is fried is dependent on cooking oil. So when the price of cooking oil goes up, it's going to affect all of those prices. We would address that by reducing the cost of cooking oil, by reducing the import duty on cooking oil and monitoring it so that the vendor, the person who is selling the cooked lunches and so on, that they at least would get that relief. And some of them, I know, they can't pass on the increased cost to the customer because you're going to complain. A plate of food they used to pay $15 for, and they now tell you $25. You walk out the place, you tell them keep the food. So you will have to work with people and make sure that you pass on the benefits so that everybody can live. This is how you do it. Now, we say also, and I want to make this as an announcement, that we'd also look at reducing the duty on building materials. Certain building materials, because it has to be those building materials that cannot be sourced in the Caribbean. Because if they're coming from the Caribbean, they already come in duty-free. And you wouldn't want a situation where you're going to make the products that are coming from outside of the Caribbean, you don't want to create unfair competition and run the Caribbean producers out of business. So we would reduce the cost of duty, but for those items that are not produced in the Caribbean. Building materials. What does that do? That means that the goods and the equipment and materials that you buy that are important in helping to construct your homes and so on, you'll be able to get a reduced price when you buy these things, because we would be looking out for the Antiguan and Barbudan consumer, making sure that we can help to ease the squeeze on some of these imported items. And so we'd be looking at building materials. We'd explore what could be done with lumber. Obviously, we'd have to make sure that these things are subject to the technical people in the ministry, looking to make certain that these are the best items on which we should select, in order to create an ease for the people of Antigua and Barbuda. So food items we believe are critical. Building supplies we think are also very important to help reduce the cost of construction and to help reduce the cost of food so that our people can eat, and those who sell food, they can sell the food and still make a little profit.
Okay. I've been directed that we have to take another break, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more on the Captain's Corner right after this.
It's time to join the family at the People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. We offer savings accounts, deposits, fixed deposits, loans, among other related services. You can even become a shareholder by purchasing a minimum of 50 shares at $5 per share. Membership is super easy and convenient. Just visit our newly opened credit union building on Upper Newgate Street, Monday to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. with proof of ID and address, along with $15 to cover registration and passbook, and you'll be set and on your way. For further information, call 462-8888 or 727-2285. People's Cooperative Credit Union Limited. Today, tomorrow, together.
Just feel like people not understand me. I don't want to even give me a chance. Go to school, I'm a hard skill. I'm a hard worker, but there's just not enough jobs out there. The economy is so bad that I'm ashamed to say that we're in the year 2022 and water hardly one day the pipe. Now them can't tell how we, in order to get a job, I must take the job. I understand the vaccine is a good thing and all that, but I just hate the fact that it's mandated. It's my body, it's my choice. I shouldn't be denied a job, education, or benefits because the choices I make for my body. For me, this time, personally, the UPP is the right choice because they are the party of choice.
And we say welcome back. Another issue I want for us to touch on, Harold, is the whole matter of what is happening at Long Bay. Several weeks ago, our very own George Wenner broke the news as to construction work that is taking place up there. We were subsequently told, or it was announced by the Prime Minister, that all work must stop. And now we are understanding that the work is continuing apace. Give us your impression.
Yes. Now, the funny thing about it is that many years ago, we had a master plan. That master plan would have included a particular section that would have been reserved for Antiguans and Barbudans, not only to recreate, but to prosper. 3 restaurants, parking, vendors arcade, children's playground, bathroom facilities, a state-of-the-art facility. Today, that's all covered in Cossie and bush and rubble. Why? Because between the Prime Minister and his son, they found a way to sell that land and to make off with $2 million. So that's their contribution as far as helping Antiguans and Barbudans to enjoy the beach is concerned. That's their contribution in terms of empowering Antiguans and Barbudans and getting people to run a restaurant, locally owned, create cultural activities there, a wonderful beach park experience, the whole works. I mean, this was the vision. We would have done it. It would have been something that we've never seen anywhere in the Eastern Caribbean before. And, you know, we were so excited about it. And they killed that. They came into power. They thought only about self-enrichment. And so young Gaston, he got off with $2 million. The people have suffered. I want to make that point because that point emphasizes everything that the Labour Party stands for. It's all about personal enrichment, not about people empowerment. Now we have a situation where on the beach itself that Antiguans and Barbudans, using the same words of the same Prime Minister, you know, the same Gaston Brown guy. Imagine now, he's talking about the people who are building it, they can't be allowed to do that. And when it comes to standing up for Antigua, everybody knows that we don't make a lot of hot air. And that was said maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And when you go there, exactly what was taking place there 3 months ago is still taking place. And we don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. But it's enough to know that you have 1 or 2 people with a lot of influence who are doing that. And so he can't stop them. He has a lot of chat, but he can't stop them. And that's because he's desperate. They have so run this country into the mud, run it off the road. They've run the boat on the reefs that they're desperate. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of quid pro quo, something going on, that you hear about a developer who's taken over Jolly Beach and lending the government money. Well, when you are borrowing money from somebody, you have to keep quiet. You can't say what you want to say. Your yea cannot be yea, and your nay cannot be nay. You have to hush your mouth and keep quiet. But you have a Prime Minister, he likes to talk before he thinks. And so he was there talking about, oh, and the footprint of this is 1/2 acre, and that can't happen. And we're going to make sure that if it's not stopped, we're going to stop it and make sure that there's a stop order. You know, like, pwah, pwah, pwah. Just a lot of hot air. And he's becoming notorious for that. A guy who just run up his mouth, as Jamaicans would say, run up his mouth, and then backtrack. Say, backtrack. So here he has now this big talk about what's going to happen at Long Bay and what he's going to stop and who can't do what, and ended up eating his words, keeping quiet, and just basically having to hush. Meanwhile, hundreds of Antiguans have been complaining about what's happening out there. And it is something that needs to be addressed because there's no provision at all for Antiguans and Barbudans. And as I said, I mean, we had a complete master plan for the area. which would have really been a project and a facility that all of Antiguans and Barbudans would have been proud. And when you're talking about this, how the Prime Minister has been operating, you know, you have to really wonder what's going on in his brain. He seems really unhinged. You know, in this matter, in the Long Bay thing that I've been talking about, he is talking about, I think it's just over half acre. I think the actual amount is 0.67 acre, right? Almost half an acre. No provision for when locals go there, what they're going to do and so on. And so I'm saying we have to be worried about the way the Prime Minister comes out blurting one thing and then the next minute he has to backtrack. I don't know if he's losing his marbles. I don't know what's going on, but there's this case with Long Bay running up his mouth and then forcing to just keep quiet. And, you know, like the man who said, you know, bet you not do that again. When somebody put their finger in your face, bet you can't do them again. And when the man put, he said, if you not put them, what you do? He said, well, nothing. So it's a farce. Yeah. It's a farce. You know, it's just a lot of chat. Then you had the situation. He wasn't going to California.
The Summit of the Americas.
He wasn't going to the Summit of Americas. Everybody is keeping quiet, right? Looking to see what the consensus is going to be. And then they work as a team. No, he now have to jump out. He first, right? He's not going. Oh, now go, definitely. Lot of chat. Next thing you hear, he on the plane and he gone. Empty ear, bluster, puff, no substance. Then Carnival. Panorama is on. Panorama is off. Panorama is on. Now I hear panorama is off. It is a circus. They have completely made a mess of governing this country. And, you know, they sit down on their radio station and they like to fling stones. And you know what they say? I think there's a Burning Flame song. It says, when you're living in a glass house, don't throw stones. And, you know, I generally try, as they say, you know, Michelle Obama say, when they go low, you go high. But you know, sometimes when they go low, you have to go lowish.
No, you
if
look
not
down.
low,
don't go low, you look down.
At least you look down. Because you see, when you don't answer these people, they will think, well, you're soft and think. They don't realize you're just staying above the fray because you don't want to go down there. But I don't want them to believe that because we choose not to respond to some of what they say, it's because we can't say anything. Because I hear the Prime Minister talk about UPP have pedophile. Pedophile? He going to talk about pedophile? Look, I want him to know, no member of the Redeem team was dating anybody when they were in third form. Nobody in the UPP Redeem team was dating anybody when they were in third form. And I also want him to know that nobody in the Redeem team had their son going to primary school, the little baby school, saying, Mommy, beat up Daddy, how Daddy nearly break Mommy hand. You understand me? No, I don't want to go there. But it's not because I don't know. You understand me? It's not because I don't know about the one who used to run out of her house in her underwear to the neighbors seeking refuge. Blows left, right, and center. It's not because I don't know. And I'm simply saying to them, when you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. You know, somebody showed me what looks like a rogues gallery. They have 4 of them sitting on a radio station. And I look at all of them, and I say, you know, I know every one of them. On the left, they had one, big muscle guy, right? He don't like me. You know why he don't like me? He had a girlfriend, beat the pulp out of the girl, black and blue. She sent the pictures to us. I said, no, you can't do that, and you can't be a candidate on our ticket. He vexed with me ever since then. Vexed with me, and you know, he did it on the day that was dedicated to elimination of violence against women. Black and blue the girl, and the pictures are still there, I have them. And he vexed with me because I mustn't object to that. and then they throwing stones at people. They're the ones next to him. He had on a red cap. He used to wear blue. In the picture you have on a red cap now. You know why he vexed with me? He vexed with me now because in the UPP, if it's one thing that people used to tag on us and they say is a scandal, is the fences scandal. They say, you know, how a lot of malspending and so. And as Minister of Finance, I launched an investigation into that scandal. And certain recommendations were made, and where the person involved was wrong, I told him he was wrong. He couldn't stand that. So he hates me now because as Minister of Finance, I launched an investigation into the fences scandal. And the Labour Party, they were trumpeting, oh, fences scandal, oh, who will go to jail and who this. And the same person who was at the heart of the fences scandal is now with them in a red cap, singing for his supper and trying to throw stones at me, the UPP, and the team that will redeem Antigua and Barbuda. Then right next to him now, you had a young lady, well, youngish. And she know what is her problem with me. I said to her, please don't blame me because Asset Michael went and called you out with your father's will. Please don't blame me for that. I'm not responsible for what happened with your father's will. I am not responsible for the fact that the judge found that you were a person who was deceitful and that you were a person who exercised undue influence. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. But anyway, I have to let you know, I have her in court right now. I have her in court right now because she's going to pay for some of the things she's been saying. So I have her in court right now. So we leave that right there. And then right next to her now, you had the other one. His only claim to fame before he came into politics is that everybody, if you have money, you say keep he far from the money. Anything to do with money, people would say, keep him far, because, you know, certain do's and don'ts, you don't want to get too involved in that. So I just want to say to them, when you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. We are not about personality attacks. We're not into that. But I don't want them to think that some of the things they're saying is because we can't respond. And what I've said is just the tip. It's just the tip. And the erratic behavior of the Prime Minister, I want people to be very concerned about that. He is behaving in a very erratic way. He's behaving in a way that I want people to Google the medication called Risperdal. If you never heard of it, I want you to Google it, Risperdal, and I want you to see what people take Risperdal for and some of the side effects of Risperdal. So I just want to put that out there, and I'm simply saying, when you live in a glass house, what I say? Don't throw stones. Come in and start flinging on yet, right? Because I'm just throwing a few pebbles out there. But let them know. They keep on with their lies and assassination of people's character. And the Prime Minister talking about rapists in UPP. Rapists? We don't have anybody on our team who managed to dodge no bullet, who had to be locked up on an allegation of rape. Nobody had to spend a night in no cell because they were alleged to have raped anybody. Nobody in our team dodged any bullet for that. So tell them just hold their side and stay in their lane. All right.
Okay, after all that steam, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Unlimited, we offer savings accounts, deposits, fixed deposits, loans, among other related services. You can even become a shareholder by purchasing a minimum of 50 shares at $5 per share. Membership is super easy and convenient. Just visit our newly opened credit union building on Upper Newgate Street, Monday to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. with proof of ID and address, along with $15 to cover registration and passbook, and you'll be set and on your way. For further information, call 462-8888 or 727-22.
And we say welcome back. We have quite a number of topics still to touch, but I think I need to raise some that have been on the Facebook Live. There's a discussion going on about plans or allegations that there are lands that might be given to a sitting MP by the Labour Party government, and the question is being asked, if at all this is true, what can a UPP government do to reverse this?
This would be a policy that would be based on bad faith. This, I mean, we can only go on the basis of what is said, and so I cannot speak to the truthfulness or otherwise of what is said. I'm just saying, based on what the questioner has asked, if it is true, what could be done? And I would say, if it is true, clearly something like this would not be a good faith transaction, and the people's assets are not to be frittered away or to be used to take one out of difficult situations as a desperate political party and a desperate governing administration. So we are quite satisfied that any such transaction, we would have it reversed in the courts, because it would be a bad faith transaction and one which clearly is not in the interest of the people, and remembering that the government are merely trustees for assets which belong to the people. So this would be a breach of trust and an abuse of the fiduciary responsibilities of the administration. Okay.
There is also a concern for us to draw our attention to what is happening in the Department of Immigration and what they're being termed as an embarrassment at the Department of Immigration, where they're making reference to the 5 Haitian nationals, detainees that escaped, and up to this point there has been no disciplinary action taken against the officer or officers on duty, and they are twinning that to a case in 2020 where a single detainee escaped and the officers were suspended.
No, something is desperately wrong. The system has obviously fallen down. These are serious matters. You can't have 5 people in your custody under your care and control, and these people disappear into Antigua and Barbuda. They don't even speak the language. These are people who speak French. They disappear just so in Antigua, and no trace, nothing, and no one is held responsible. But they say when the top is slack, then everywhere else has to be loose. So this is crazy. I mean, we're running a cowboy country. I mean, really, you haven't heard of anybody being disciplined. You haven't heard of any serious statement. The only statement you heard was one where they tried to brush it under the carpet, tried to make it seem as though Real News, who broke the story and who told the nation what has happened, had it happened, they tried to make it seem as though, oh, you're blowing it out of proportion. How can you be blowing out of proportion the fact that 5 people who were put in your care and custody, you don't know who is thief, you don't know who is murderer, you don't know who they are, and you allow these people loose in Antigua? Suppose something had happened to somebody. Who would explain to the person, the family, what had happened? I mean, we're running a real joker's land, and it is headed by the joker-in-chief. Is headed by the joker-in-chief, and that is why the whole country seems to be running on free fall and autopilot, where there is a serious malfunction.
I want us not to lose sight of issues, or a recurring issue that we've been discussing for the past few weeks. It came up again in the cabinet notes this week, the whole issue of water and the pain and agony of those of us who reside here, the whole issue of water.
Somebody did a cartoon, water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. And it's so apt. And they're trying to do everything. 8 years in office, and they're still trying to blame the UPP. 8 years in office, and they're blaming a drought that started in 2011, where we had already put systems in place. Any water system is based on 3 basic components. It's 1, where you source your water, whether it be dams and ponds and reservoirs, whether it be from the sea, or whether it be from underground, or whether you extract it from the air. You have to get the water from somewhere, so that's your starting point. Then there is storage, and you must store the water somewhere. You have to have storage facilities. That is one of the main areas where there's been a breakdown. They still have not been able to give the people of Antigua and Barbuda an explanation. Why is the storage tank up at Patterson's just by Liberta, why is it still empty? Why hasn't it been connected? It was there when the UPP left office. We had plans for it to be connected. Why hasn't it been connected? Why isn't the one at Buckley is connected? Why has it taken so long for the one at St. Philip's and Collins to be put into service? The whole thing is a comedy of errors. And now you read in the cabinet notes that they brought in the water manager. Now they're trying to stress the poor man out, torment the poor man's soul. Because after 8 years of failure, they're now trying to throw him under the bus and make it seem as though it's his fault. So they're calling him up, and they're saying in the cabinet notes that they're saying to him, he must come back every week. So now after 8 years, you have totally failed the people. The tanks, the storage tanks are still empty, and you're now blaming him. And then the third component is, of course, distribution. How you manage your distribution. And that has to do with all your pipelines and maintenance of your pipelines and so on. And so you must have some sort of plan in terms of your groundwater, your surface water, your desalinated water, wherever you're getting the water from. You must have a clear plan where you're storing the water. The dams and reservoirs are no longer adequate for storage during this drought period. No rain is coming. You're having problems with your underground water, but we have desalinated water. And during the UPP's time, we had a plant that was producing over 4 million gallons a day. I blew the whistle on them. I called them out. I told them that a plant that was producing more than 4 million gallons a day was now producing 2 million gallons a day. They called in the water manager. They say I'm lying. They called in the water manager. The water manager says the truth. That's what's happening. He's telling them it's not my fault. Look at the system. What have you been doing? You have a whole minister. All he good for is smoke cigar. But what has he done to help the water situation? And then he said everything that Lovell said is true. And then you hear them getting busy. They found $1.4 million to buy membranes. We blew them out. They put it in the membranes before they put it in the filters. Badam, you hear they're getting filters. And all of a sudden now you're hearing about membranes and filters, and they're now stressing out the poor man and telling him he must come back to them every week after 8 years of failed leadership from the cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda, knowing that there's a drought. None of them were on top of the ball. None of them knew what was happening. They were so busy enriching themselves out there cussing people when they should be doing the people's work. The water situation got away from them. They dropped the ball. They failed the people of Antigua and Barbuda. While people were suffering, they were having a great time. Having a great time and not paying attention. And now they're trying to blame everybody. They're blaming the workers at APUA, talk about sabotage. Now they're trying to stress out the water manager, making it seem as though it's his fault, when the fault lies with the leadership of this country. A major problem like drought. You had everything there to make sure that the people could get water. You failed the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Time for the Labour Party government to go. Bunch of jokers. UPP is the right choice.
How do you respond to the criticism they make that the UPP is seeking to politicize the water situation?
They should be ashamed to say that. To say something like that, each one of them should look in the mirror and say, I'm sorry. Sorry for being a fool to myself. Because they made a fool of themselves. How are you going to say you're politicizing a problem like water? Who was it who went on the platform and said, any government that cannot provide water for its people does not deserve to be elected by the people. Who was it? Wasn't it the same Labour Party minister who's now responsible for water who said it? Who was it who all the time made it seem as though the UPP was the problem, when we were putting matters in place so that we would have continuous water? Never during the period of the UPP did we have the sort of problems that we have right now in Antigua. Never, ever, ever. In fact, I don't remember any time since 1968 that we've ever had this. And in 1968, we did not have a desalination plant. It was following that big drought around in the mid-60s, and then the big shower of rain came and broke the 7 years of famine. And then Potworks Dam was filled up even before it was completed. That was, I think, 1967 or 68. And that is what broke the drought. But before that, you had a major drought, but we didn't have desalinated water. And so everybody was going through a real hard time. We've gone backwards. We haven't gone forwards. And while they're telling people the water situation is getting better, it is getting worse. And I want, once again, to throw the call. I want the government ministers of this cabinet to put up their hands and declare that they do not have any interest in the trucking of water. I want to hear them say they do not have an interest in the trucking of water, because a lot of money is being made in the trucking of water. And school children say that there are at least 2 government ministers who are involved in the trucking of water. And we need them to come clean and tell the people whether 2 government ministers have an interest in the trucking of water. That's what they need to study.
From where you sit, or maybe stand, what is your assessment of where we are in Antigua and Barbuda at this time?
We're in a perilous state. The government is obviously desperate. We have the workers at Jolly Beach who are screaming for their money. Solid waste workers screaming for the money. We have the workers at Fines Institute who stood up for over a month because they were...
Clearview.
Right, Clearview. But you've had the fines workers also standing up. We've had the APA workers standing up. In fact, it's easier to count the departments that have not had to stand up for their money. The government finds itself in a position where they have put the economy in stall. When you go to solid waste and you hear people who are owed $100,000, small businesses who had invested money, maybe one pickup, two trucks, and they depend on the government to pay them. Government can't pay them. They can't pay their suppliers. They can't pay their workers. They find themselves in problems. Everybody finds themselves in problems because the government is at the root of the problem. We're spiraling downwards. And that's why I'm saying we're in a perilous position. We have some spin doctors who work for the government. They will come and tell you that the sky is blue when there are rain clouds and thunder clouds hanging over. They will come and tell you that black is white and that wrong is right. That's what their spin doctors are doing. And I spoke of some of them who, if UPP was in power today, I guarantee you my last dollar, if UPP was in power today, they would still be with UPP. UPP out of power, they're gone where they feel the grass is greener. That's all. That's all. And they're prepared to sell their souls for that.
Okay. You're on fire. I think you need to cool down. But we've been given the wrap-up sign, so I just want to know if there's any final comment you want to make before we end our program.
Well, I just want to say that the UPP is prepared. The UPP, we are ready in terms of good, innovative plans for this country. We understand that our country must create an environment where our young people can prosper and succeed, and we will do that. We understand that we need to create a level playing field for the business community so that everybody has an equal opportunity to make a dollar in this country in a legal way, to support their families, pay their mortgages, and make a better life for themselves. The UPP will create that type of environment. We want to make sure that we respect and we honor our elders, and we look after our young children and bring them up in a world that is a better place when we leave it than when we met it. Antigua and Barbuda has a bright future with the United Progressive Party. The UPP is the right choice. And we have a team of men and women who are ready and committed to serve this nation, not to enrich themselves. Call the election now. we are ready to take this country to a new level for the benefit of the people of Antigua and Barbuda.
Okay, Harold Lovell, thank you very much. It was a good night. And I just want to say thanks again to our many listeners, viewers, those of you who have been engaging on the Facebook Live. Thank you so very much. And until we come your way again next week, I'm Shawn Nicholas saying goodbye.
Father died when I was just 5 years old. My mother came from Willikies village. She had 5 young mouths to feed, and she toiled on her sewing machine to make ends meet. She was a strong woman who taught us right from wrong. And even though she struggled, the choices she made put us on the right path. I made the choice to work hard, play by the rules, and get an education. I had a number of opportunities, but I chose to return to Antigua and inspire the next generation. I taught at the Antigua Grammar School, and it's here that I saw firsthand how education transforms lives. I made the choice to get into politics because of the lack of resources that I saw in our schools. I saw how our teachers and families struggled whilst an elite few got ahead. When the people granted us the opportunity to serve in government, we had a lot of work to do. As Minister of Finance, I clean up the rot of 30 years of one-party rule. We saw our country through the global financial crisis and the Stanford collapse. Through all of that, we introduced the school meals program, the school uniform program, and laptops for children. While we were not perfect, no one is perfect but Almighty God. We worked day in and day out to defend the nation and put people first. Today I see too many families struggling for a lack of jobs and the mental stress that comes with it. The cost of living is out of control, and for too many of us, water is still not readily available. And our needed pension checks are not coming on time. While the elite few did well, the ABLP denied you the right to choose what you put in your body. Whilst we believe in vaccines, we don't believe it's the responsibility of government to control your bodies. We will bring an end to all the mandates. This election is about choice, and we believe that we are the right choice because we give you the choice.
But just feel like people not understand me. I don't want to even give me a chance. Go to school, my hard skill. I'm a hard worker, but there's just not enough jobs out there. The economy is so bad that I'm ashamed to say that we're in the year 2022 and water hardly one near the pipe. Now them can't tell how we, in order to get a job, I must take the job. I understand the vaccine is a good thing and all that, but I just hate the fact that it's mandated. It's my body, it's my choice. I shouldn't be denied a job, education, or benefits because the choices I make for my body. For me, this time, personally, the UPP is the right choice because they are the party of choice.